My name's Adele Onyango and welcome to another episode of Legally Clueless. No, seriously, I have no clue what I'm doing, but I'm pretty sure I'm not the only one. Hello, welcome to episode 117 of Legally Clueless. Thanks for being part of the tribe. If this is your first ever episode, remember you can join our online fam on Instagram. That's at Legally Clueless Podcast. If you want to chit chat about the podcast on Twitter, use the hashtag Legally Clueless. It makes it easier for me to stalk you. No, but seriously, we have new audio episodes out every single Monday. And we also have our new baby that is the video series. So if you head over to the Legally Clueless YouTube channel, you can find video episodes. In fact, the most recent episode features a very powerful story by Thiru. Listen to this.
And then I finally get a call back. We're about to start shooting something for a different project that had been in the works for like 2 years. And then we're locked down again. I was just like, bruh, I'm tired. So I've sort of done this thing where I'm at a point where like, if it's hard, F it. I'm not gonna stress about it. And the moment I'd said that, I got a job offer to work at another radio station, or actually it's a media house. I love my job fully. I've got, great people at work. And so during that whole time, I was still being positive, but please remember, I still haven't been paid for like months. I'm still dealing now with catching up on the payments. My daughter's trying to go back to school.
Trust me, that's definitely a story you want to check out. That is on our video series on the Legally Clueless YouTube channel. If you check out the show notes, there is a link to that channel there. Back to this episode. Oh my goodness. I'm really excited about the story that you're going to hear because it's so action-packed. I remember when I was recording it and the first time the storyteller told it to me, I was just like, what is this movie that is your life? And it's a story by Oliver that's going to be coming up later in this episode. Listen to this.
So there's this DJ who I met and she really liked my work and asked me if I could be her photographer. We used to shoot every weekend. I used to go to be in a club. On this day, we left the club at 4. She dropped me at Roy Sambu. And then there are 3 guys who were on a bike. They came and they passed me. And then they lighted and they pretended they were drunk. I was just like, you know what? This is a Sunday morning. These are drunkards from the club, trying to find their way home. Kumbe, they weren't drunk. I think that was their tactic to make me not shook with them. So I walked kidogo, and then the next thing I realized that this guy pulled a gun on my face. Wait?
As I said, it's a really action-packed story that feels like a movie. But anyway, it's going to be coming up a little later in this episode. I hope you're doing fantastic, though. I hope that you're hanging in there. I was telling a very close friend of mine who was asking, or rather just remarking, that she wasn't feeling into it. She was feeling a bit lethargic. Her mind was unsettled. She was not motivated, etc., etc. And what was driving her up the wall was that she couldn't figure out why. And I kind of had to remind her that, okay, fine, it could be a number of things, but also don't forget that we have been in this pandemic for over a year. So consistently having our entire lives changed, consistently dealing with fear, grief, loss of human life, and also loss of our livelihoods, or, just having fears around that as well, consistently for over a year and still going. So I'll share what I told her, which is just be gracious with yourself. Just treat yourself with some grace, like we're actually going through it. So don't come down hard on yourself if you're not as productive as you were before the pandemic, if you're having all of these thoughts in your mind. Honestly, just because we've gotten pandemic fatigue doesn't change that this thing has actually traumatized us and continues to for over a year. But that said, I still hope that you're good. And if you're not, you're acknowledging that and doing what you need to do to be good. What I have actually gotten so addicted to this is so strange. So one podcast that I really listen to is Case Files because I love crime shows, and so like crime podcasts are my thing. So in one of the episodes, they told the story of the Jonestown massacre, which, by the way, I had no idea about. So you can imagine my shock and trauma finding out about this cult that ultimately ended in a mass suicide of over 900 people. What? So basically what I have dug into is just documentaries on cults, because I'm just trying to understand how that level of manipulation happens. So there's a documentary about it that I just watched. There's a documentary on another cult, which is a more recent one, Nexium. It's spelled funny. It was dubbed the sex cult, and it had a lot of celebrities in it. Oh my goodness. That one you might have heard of because it was relatively recent. But yeah, that's what I'm currently obsessed with. Just watching cult documentaries. But other than that, I'm hanging in there. I wouldn't say I'm good. I'm hanging in there. I'm just there. That is so Kenyan, but yeah, I'm just there. Let's jump into the song of the week, which this week, I feel like I've made this song the song of the week before, but I have been jamming it for the past week, so here it is again. And it's a dope song, so nobody's complaining. And it's a song by Tetushani, who's an artist from right here in Kenya. He's absolutely amazing. In fact, he's one of my favorite live performing artist. Like his live gigs, when outside is open again and you see his name on a poster, go, because he is amazing. So the song is Africa's Sun. I really love it. So in the show notes, there is a link to that song. Make sure you check it out. All right, let's jump into our action-packed story. And it is by Oliver, the photographer. And he talks about the day that he was robbed of his photography gear at gunpoint. 100 African stories on Legally Clueless. Stories from Africa.
My name is Oliver Twiz Mangula. I'm a luxury wedding photographer based in Nairobi, Kenya. I first fell in love with photography in 2014 when I was in college. I was in JKUAT. I went to do something different from what I'm doing. I went to do agribusiness management and enterprise development. But then when I was in my second year, I met a couple of guys who were photographers. They were part of a community, a Christian community. And just like that, I got interested in what they were doing. So I approached them, and that's how it just started. It kicked off like that. Okay, the first time I handled a camera was in Gatamayo in Limuru. Went for a hike. And so a friend of mine came with a camera. It is still the same community that I was part of. So a friend of mine came with a camera. I knew nothing about the camera. But then he was very kind to me, and he showed me a couple of things and then gave me the camera. So the entire weekend, I was the one who was handling the camera. Most pictures were out of focus. But I was very, very excited that I got a chance to handle a camera for a whole weekend. But then the first photo shoot I ever did, I was raising money to do some projects in college. And then I got a camera and I did a fashion shoot inside the college. I was so excited about it. As a photographer, before you go for a shoot, you check a couple of things on Pinterest, get some ideas. Yeah, so I did this shoot. I wasn't paid. The client didn't like the images, but then I was so excited that I stepped out of my comfort zone, and went for it and did the shoot. There's a time I visited Zanzibar with a couple of friends, and I think that was my biggest highlight of this journey, because when I came back to Kenya, I had so many pictures from Zanzibar, and they were really beautiful. And I remember there was a competition at Kiss 100, and I submitted these pictures, and I got a chance to work with Sandiwe. So when I left Zanzibar, I was just like, you know what, this is what I am going to do. But then there was classwork, and I had to attend classes, do the assignments. Yeah, I made sure I finished uni. But I equally did photography when I was in uni. It was like a side hustle thing. I used to do small gigs. So instead of calling your parents for poke, at least when you do a gig, you have some little tunes to, take you through. When I started out as a photographer, my parents weren't in for that idea. But something funny, my maternal side, most guys are artists. My grandfather was a musician. He used to sing, used to write. My uncles have done music. They're PhD. They're lecturers in music. And so I really couldn't understand how my immediate parents wouldn't allow me to do this. But progressively, after a period of time, after I've been in a position to prove to them that, you know what, I can earn a living, I can pay rent, and I can do my own stuff with this thing. They have agreed to it. They plugged in finally. So after I graduated, I still wasn't sure if I wanted to do photography or not. And so there's this company that came to school. They wanted interns from my department. And I went for the aptitude test, did the aptitude test, passed it, went for the interview, and I passed the interview, and then we went for induction. So during induction, you're given, the rules and regulations of the company and how much you guys are going to be paid. So after the training, one evening, these guys tell us, you know what, you guys will report. It was a Friday, so you'll report on Monday, and we will be paying you guys 10,000 shillings per month. That hit me so hard because when I was in uni, before I graduated, I used to earn some little money, 5,000 in a weekend. So this is someone telling me they're going to give me 10,000 shillings for a month. And this is money I can earn in 2 days. This is a job related to the course that I did in college. What they were offering, I could make that in a weekend, from photography. And mark you, I didn't go to any school of photography. I went to school of YouTube, like many of us. So it's like, you know what? If you put in more effort and learn more, you will earn more. From that time, I decided, you know what? This is what I'm going to do for a living. This is going to be my career. And since then, I have never applied for any agribusiness job up to now. I see a couple of my friends, writing CVs. I don't even know if I know how to write a CV. But I can present myself with a portfolio. After I finished school, I didn't have my own camera. So I used to hire cameras from my friends. But then there's an auntie of mine who I really, really appreciate, and I'm so grateful. She came through for me. She was in Japan doing her master's. And so I used to mention a couple of times when we were chatting on WhatsApp that, you know what, I am really interested in this thing. And so when she was coming back, she just got me a camera. That was my first camera, and that's the biggest blessing that ever happened to me. I went to the airport, so excited, met her, and she had the camera in her bag, in her carry-on bag. So she just handed it to me, and you know what? I was super excited. I then started shooting. With my new camera, most of the gigs that I used to do were baby showers. I'm pretty sure I've gone to many baby showers than you are there. I shot so many baby showers in Nairobi, so many. So every weekend I used to have a baby shower. And that way I was learning how to, deal with people, how to shoot under pressure. Because at times, you see, when you're doing a photo shoot for someone, there's that space and time. When you're shooting an event, things are instant. So it's click. You miss a click, you miss a shot. So with this same camera that my aunt got me, in as much as I was shooting baby showers and these little events, I also got myself into competitions, and there's a year I won 3 competitions. I won in 3 competitions. There was Karura, there was a competition at Karura Forest, there was a global competition that I was the first runners up, and there was an award I got. This is previous. There's an award I got in uni, Photographer of the Year. So in uni we used to have awards for specific clubs, and during my time I won Photographer of the Year. So I had mentioned earlier that I used to shoot baby showers and birthdays. So there's this DJ who I met, and she really liked my work and asked me if I could be, her photographer. And I plugged in, so excited. And so we used to shoot every weekend. I used to go to be in a club. I used to club from Thursday, Friday, Saturday. But then it's for work. I used to be taking pictures. So there's this time we went to a club in Mombasa Road, the same building that is hosting Excess Millionaires. We used to leave the club at around 3 or 4 in the morning. So we left the club, and both of us used to stay around Kasarani. So she used to drop me at the roundabout, and then I would get a bike to my place. So on this day, we left the club at 4. She dropped me at Roysambu. She used to drive a Mack, and so you see, at night when you're dropped with a certain vehicle, people will raise eyebrows. If there are thugs around, they'll definitely follow you. This DJ drops me at the roundabout, and it was around 5. And if you live around Roysambu, on Sunday mornings, there's a church around there, and people usually go to church very early. So there's usually a crowd around that roundabout. And so on this day, I was just like, I can walk. My house is just there. I could see it. I'm not going to use a bike. And so I started walking to my house. And then there are 3 guys who were on a bike. There was a guy who was riding and 2 pillion passengers. So they came and they passed me. And then they alighted, and they pretended they were drunk. They wanted to mess up my mind. So I was just like, you know what, this is a Sunday morning. These are drunkards from the club, trying to find their way home. Kumbe they weren't drunk. I think that was their tactic to make me not, shuku them. Mm. So I walked kidogo, and then the next thing I realized that this guy is pull a gun on my face. Wait? I nearly peed on myself. We've always, when you see a cop with a gun, it's different. When a gun is pulled on your face, it's totally different. So immediately I knew what they wanted. I just gave them the bag and, ran towards the opposite side. So the bag had my camera, a lens, and my laptop. Because at the club, I used to edit and post immediately. They took off with the bike, with my bag. In my mind, I was just like, you know what, Oliver, you can grab a matatu and follow these guys. So I stopped on matatu, got into the matri. I told the conductor, you know what, I have been mugged with a couple of guys. Could you kindly be in a position to help me follow them? And these guys just laughed at me. So the matatu was going to Thika, so I alighted at Githurai. So at this point, it has completely hit me that I have lost my gear. I've literally lost my office. I have no money with me, and so I have to get another bike to bring me back to Kasarani. So I went to the stage. There's a couple of Boda guys who were there. Talked to one of them, and I was shaking, and he could clearly tell that something had happened. So I told him I have been mugged. Take me back home. I'll get some money from my house, then pay you. So this guy agreed. And so we left Githurai. But then he didn't use the right side of the road. He used the wrong side. So when we were coming to Kasarani, riding to Kasarani, I saw a light coming. A bike was coming. At this point, I didn't know who these guys were. So when we got closer to these guys, when we met, I saw my bag on one of the backs of these guys. I was like, no, my gear can't just go like that. So I told the Boda guy, these are the guys who have mugged me. If you can follow them, please, let's do so. Also, if you know cops around Githurai, call the cops to come. They will really help us, get these things. So these guys went to a certain club in Githurai. We followed them. Of course, we had to keep some distance. They alighted, got into the club. We also alighted. So we were just standing out there waiting for them to get out. So when they got out, I met them face to face. And I knew they were going to shoot me. They were going to kill me. It just hit my head that, you know what, Oliver? This was a wrong decision. This is the day you're going to die. And surprisingly, these guys didn't even notice that they had mugged me a few minutes ago. They went on the bike again and, took the route to Muihoko. So we had no choice but to follow them. So at some point, I asked this Boda guy who was carrying me, by any chance, can you just mention this to your people around here, the Boda guys around here, and see if they can help us? And you know what this Boda guy told me? That most of the guys at this stage are thugs. They can turn this against us. Mm-hmm. So let's just follow them. We will call a cop when you know where these guys are going. So these guys rode for almost 15 minutes. Deep inside Githurai. They alighted. They took a detour somewhere to where some houses are. But then for us, we didn't stop there. We passed them. We gave them a distance of around a kilometer. I think it's their house. They went into the house, dropped the bag, and then came back out, went to the club again. They've already made a kill. Yeah? They've already made a kill, so it's time to go and enjoy themselves. So they went back to the club. So at this point, the cop who we were trying to call finally got his phone. So this Boda guy mentioned that there's a young man who has been mugged in Githurai. We have managed to follow these guys. We are at a certain place in Muihoko. And the cop said, okay, cool. So these guys came back to Githurai. So we equally mentioned to the cop that these guys have done what? They've gone back to the club. So the cop came to the club. When the cop arrived, he came in a private vehicle. When the cop arrived, I was there. He called me and asked me, where are these guys? Now let me show you what we do to people who own guns. And this cop cocked his gun. And I got so scared because I was just about to see someone being killed. So the two guys had entered the club. The guy who was on a bike was still outside the club. So when this guy, the one who had a bike outside the club, had the gun being cocked, he took off immediately. There were a couple of guys around there, so the cop couldn't make a good shot. This guy took off. So we're here with a cop, but the culprits are not there. So the cop asked me a couple of questions. Do you know where these guys went to? I was like, yeah, I know where they stopped. We can go and try and see if we can get the camera, the bag, because when we left that place, coming back to the club, they didn't have the bag. So we rode on a bike with a cop to Muihoko, where these guys, left the bag. And then when we got there, it was around 6 now. The cop tried to figure out where young men stay. So is a carpenter. I find it funny that carpenters sleep in workshops. There's a carpenter who was living in his workshop. And so cop asked him, vijana wanaishi wapi hapa? So he said room number 1. So the cop went to room number 1, The door wasn't even closed. They opened the door and, put on the lights. And the first thing he saw was the bag. So he asked me, come, is this your bag? Yes, there were two other guys who were sleeping on the bed. These guys were drunk. They didn't even know who. Someone got into the house, and put the lights on. So immediately the cop went hard on them, started beating them up. You guys have to produce a gun. You have a gun. Where is the gun? And then after a couple of minutes of interrogating these guys, the cop realized that he knew them. And so he asked them, are you the brothers to so and so? And they said yes. So this person X who mugged me was a brother to these two boys. And he was a wanted thug in Githurai. And they had warned him, told him that this is the last time you should be found, committing a crime. The next time we find you, we'll kill you. And so this cop just got angry and then told these boys, I need you to call your father right now. Because the previous conversation they had with the dad was that the son to stop doing what? Mugging guys, people. So these boys called their father. Their father came. Their father was also drunk. And the cop told him, you know what? The next time we meet your child, your son, we'll shoot him. Because what he's doing is wrong. And he owns a gun. So previously the dad had refused, had refuted that the son doesn't own a gun. But now here there is full evidence that he has a gun. And so we went to the police station, wrote a statement, and the cops gave me my gear. That is how surprising. That's up to today. I don't understand how we managed to follow someone who had a gun and we didn't have a gun, and we managed to get our stuff back. That was a miracle. So after that incident, I was very skeptical about shooting at night. And I remember that day, there was a concert. I went to my house, freshened up, and went for that concert. I didn't want to be alone. When I left that concert, it was at around 6:37. I left that concert, and someone with a motorbike just passed me, and I started shaking. I was really traumatized. From that experience, I stopped shooting in clubs. At all. I'd been shooting for almost 2 years. That was the last thing I'd wanted to have done. Shooting in a club, getting back at home at that time. So I stopped shooting in clubs. The guy who carried me, the Boda guy who brought me back to Risambu, and the one who was helping me trail these guys, immediately he saw the cop, he left. Up to today, I tried calling his number and he's offline. I have never gotten him on call. So I asked these cops, did you know this guy? And they said, yeah, we knew him. Here is his number. So I've always tried to reach out. I wanted to return the hand, but I don't know. I don't know where this guy went to. Yeah, so when I stopped shooting in clubs, or rather events that go up too late in the night, I usually don't just feel like it's right for me, because of the insecurity. So from that, I then now started shooting weddings. So, but before, as I was shooting in clubs, I used to shoot in weddings during the day. So I shoot a wedding on Saturday during the day, and then at night I go to the club. But then after these incidents, I just decided, I can still stick to wedding photography and still earn something out of it. As I had mentioned earlier, I really like telling love stories. And so in my head, I was like, if you shoot couples in town, how would it look like? It would be really nice. People in Maju do that. We haven't just realized we can do that in Nairobi. So I decided to get models and start shooting in town. Now this is where I get to have confrontations with cops. In this my small career, I have been caught by cops, I think 5 to 6 times while I was shooting. So apparently, for you to shoot in town, you need to have a license. But then I remember there's a time, photographers really pushed, and we were allowed to shoot for free in town. You feel like you want to shoot in town, you grab your gear and your models and go and shoot. Yeah, so there's this time I was shooting a friend of mine in town who is a model. All of a sudden, someone just comes to me, someone in civilian clothes, 3 young men. They are like, I could tell these guys are really my age mates. So they approach me and they tell me, stop shooting. Who are you? I am so-and-so. I'm a photographer. Why are you shooting in town? Do you know it's illegal shooting in town? We suspect that you're a terrorist. Bring your camera, let's go to Central Police Station. I'm just like, but I thought we were allowed, creatives were allowed to shoot for free in town. I'm part of the Photographers Association of Kenya. There's a body that is recognized by the government. I have an ID, my Kenyan identification card. And at what point do you just decide to come and start telling me that I'm a terrorist? So I've had such instances in town more than 4 times. People just come to you, and the recent one really surprised me. Someone just jumped on me, and usually when such things happen, when you push me to a box where I can't defend myself, I usually become so noisy, and let's rough each other. Let's rough each other. And so the recent one, a cop jumped on me, and they didn't even mention who they were, and I was just like, this guy is a thug. And so I pushed this cop. I didn't know it was a cop, but then how he handled me, I knew it was a thug. So I pushed him. We nearly got physical with each other. Then he was just like, I'm a cop. He got his radio call out of his pocket. I'm a cop. You're shooting it in town. It's illegal. Let's go to Central. So I don't want this thing to, escalate. So he went to Central. When you go to Central, there was another cop at Central. So the other cop asked me, what were you doing? I told him I was shooting. Here is the model I was shooting. And so this other cop just told me, you know what? Don't take pictures of the building. You go back and shoot. But then this other guy, he was like reporting me to the cop. When he got there, he mentioned to the cop, huyu tumemshika kapiga picha kwa street. Ebu umshike. So it's like, who are you, first of all? Are you a cop? And if you're not a cop, why did you get this walkie-talkie? And why are you harassing creatives in tower? That's very, very wrong. And it hasn't happened to me alone. A couple of my friends who are photographers have equally been harassed in tower. What keeps me going, I think, is the fact that I do what I love. There's a fire in me that just tells me, Oliver, this is what you love, and there are no two ways about it. If you stop doing photography, what else will you do with so much love? And so, in as much as I get harassed by cops, 2 months ago I lost my laptop. I was shooting in Karen at some hotel. I won't mention the hotel, and it was just me, the models, and the management. At that time, the president had issued that decree of guys not going to restaurants. And so when I was shooting, I left my stuff on the table that we were sitting. It's a gazebo. In a span of 5 to 10 minutes while shooting, I came back. I wanted to get something from my bag. When I came back, my laptop was missing. And it's only us, 4 of us, me the photographer, 2 other models, and a designer, and people who work in that compound. I requested to see the CCTV footage because the place has a perimeter wall. There's no way someone would have jumped it, and it has an electric fence up there on the perimeter wall. And there is a guard at the gate. And it's a restaurant, and it's not functioning. There are very few people in the compound. Anyway, long story short, the CCTV footage didn't show anything. Most likely the person who stole my camera knew that the CCTV footage wasn't showing that certain place, and so he used that route when he picked my laptop. So in as much as I get to face all these things, I get harassed by cops, I lose gear, and photography gear is very expensive. What keeps me going is the love for the craft. It's therapeutic, when I take pictures I feel nice, and so I don't think there's something else I can do apart from this.
Catch more African stories in the next episode of Legally Clueless. What an experience from getting robbed at gunpoint. That is so scary. You know how there's a fight or flight? I remember thinking while recording that, my flight would be to the opposite direction. There's no way I'm chasing after thugs. But it also reminded me of a time when Fal and I were robbed and at gunpoint and held in his warehouse for over an hour by these thugs. And that must have been when? It was before we got married, so probably 2016. In fact, it was 2016 December. We were not married, so I was living with my sisters, and since it was December, with one of my sisters. She was traveling for December, and I was basically home alone. I used to sleep with all the lights on, and then downstairs, I'd leave the TV on. I don't know, in my head, I rationalized it and was like, if thugs come, they will think there are people downstairs watching TV. And I just couldn't sleep with the lights off for the longest time after that experience. It was so traumatizing for both of us. I would not wish it on anyone. I can much easier speak about it. Fal, I think it took him until probably last year, to be quite frank, to just have open discussions about everything. It is not If you have experienced robbery at gunpoint and you want to share your story, like, I'd love to hear from you, especially if you have gotten to the point that you can speak about it, because it is traumatic. It's crazy. But I have in the show notes put a link to Oliver's website and his social media platforms. If you want to check out his photography, I think you should. And speaking of telling you to share your stories, you can, in the show notes, click the link to our storytelling form, just fill it out and I'll get back to you. Alternatively, you could also send a 1-minute story demo telling me about the story that you want to share. And you can send that to our Legally Clueless hotline. That is +254 768 628 790. So wherever you are in the world, feel free to send through those story demos via WhatsApp. This podcast also plays on Trace Radio in Kenya, so head over to traceradio.co.ke and you can stream the radio station there. You can also see a list of the frequencies, and Legally Clueless is on Trace every Monday and Wednesday at 12 noon and 7 p.m. and Friday at 12 noon as well. I have no idea why. Oh my God. Wait, aside from not knowing why I'm singing, can I just share the nonsense that is happening in my hood? So remember how I was so excited that all the kids in my apartment block had moved out, meaning less noise when I'm recording. So the 2 houses that had kids and they moved remained vacant for like months. I wasn't complaining. I was like, perfect silence. This is amazing. In fact, at that point, I'm pretty sure I was the youngest person in our block because the other 2 households are like elderly couples. Anyway, 2 new families moved in, man. One of them has 3 toddlers. Not 1, not 2, but 3. Today they were screaming. For no reason. Like, not even screaming coherent things. Not even screaming because they're in pain. Not even screaming because it was a game or like just screaming for no reason. Oh my goodness. So yeah, that house has 3 toddlers. The ones opposite us have teenagers, so I'm guessing it should be okay for now. They, though, are still figuring out their water pump. So, Listen, guys, I'm looking for a standalone home in Nairobi with a garden. Please help. Or else this podcast will keep having random guest appearances in the background, aka my neighbor's 3 toddlers who just scream for no reason. Like, is that a normal thing with kids? That's it for this episode of Legally Clueless. You can share this podcast with your friends. You can keep it for yourself. I'm not judging. Just make sure you're here next week for the next episode.